Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. There has been a little small change in the agenda. So I'll be the one presenting and moderating the session. Well, as you can see, I'm not artificial intelligence as the moderator introduction that was given here. I don't know if we will notice that in maybe 10 or 20 years. Right now, it's clear that I'm not artificial intelligence because I make mistakes. Well, they do as well. Anyway, the core of the belt will be the same while I talk, while in the window and the screen, it was changing from one time to time. I'll be married all the time because the ring disappeared in some of the shots. I'll be smiling in the same way. But anyway, I'm Pablo Zarco, Tejada, so I was professor in Melbourne University in Australia until recently. I came back to my home city, which is Córdoba, where I was director of the Institute for Sustainable Agriculture, which is just a few minutes from here. And I studied agricultural engineering in this faculty, in this university. And in fact, in this same building. After 25 years or more, I'm back to the same building, although the School of Agriculture is now moved to the campus where the university is. So it's a double pleasure for me to be back after 20 years working abroad in several countries and working in remote sensing, which is my expertise, and being back physically as well in the same place where I used to be around and studying and enjoying the learning process with excellent teachers and professors. Some of them are here, which is a pleasure to see. My expertise is in remote sensing, and in remote sensing we have also a context in which obviously artificial intelligence and the new technologies are being adopted. And one of the things that I've seen happening in the past 20, 30 years is that the new technologies being brought into remote sensing have been making an excellent progress in the technology and the way we use and collect data. But at the same time, and I talk about that in some cases, it's been going backwards when we are limited to what is being offered and to the actual technology that is being offered by industry. So this is in some way something interesting to discuss as well in the context of the overall artificial intelligence, because I feel, and we will discuss about that in some cases we use only, obviously, the tools that are available, and we take the path that is being designed by others. I say a sentence that, or talk about an idea that it's currently happening in my own expertise in remote sensing, which is that some companies, end users, farmers, they use what they can do. They do what they can do with the technology that is available, but not everything that is possible. And that is a clear limitation. So I think that in artificial intelligence, sometimes we are dealing with the same aspects. We don't do something, not because it cannot be done, but because the solutions that have been offered are limiting our progress. So we'll discuss about all these aspects. And so I have the pleasure to introduce to the members that were sitting here, the panelists. I'll go quickly saying their names. Dr. Raffaele Giaffreda from Bruno Kessler Foundation-Trento from Italy. Dr. Federico Bert from Instituto Interamericano de Cooperación para la Agricultura from Argentina, José Luis Molina Zamora from Hispatec Agrointeligencia from Spain, and then Professor Lawrence Clerks from Wageningen from the Netherlands, and also linked to the University of Talca in Chile. The whole idea is that they will give a presentation, and then after that it would be good to have a bit of a debate and get some conclusions. I always feel that it's a shame when we go to conferences and to symposia and there is no discussion, no interactions. People are afraid of asking and discussing. And the whole reason why we came here, other than meeting others and to have a coffee and visit Córdoba for the people from abroad, is actually to discuss and to talk about things. And in fact, talking about limitations is probably the most important thing that we can do, rather than talking about how good some of the technologies and the things that we do are. I feel that the way we learn the most is by talking about what are the main limitations that we have, because that's the only way we can then try to make progress and focus on those. Anyway, I'll stop talking. So please welcome Dr. Raffaele Giaffreda. Raffaele is Digital Agriculture Innovation Lead in the Open IoT Research Unit of FBK, dealing with technology transfer activities in the digital agriculture sector, and he's coordinator of European projects and has been work package leader as well of the EU Agri-Data Space project. He's been working over the past 20 years in telecommunication research and innovation, has been coordinator of numerous projects and research activities as part of FP7 and H2020 framework programs, mostly dealing with machine learning and artificial intelligence techniques, supported by Internet of Things data collection platforms in different application contexts. He's coordinator of Agri-Food Dev project as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, good morning, and thanks again for having me here. It's a pleasure to be second time on this stage. So today I'm going to talk about the second part of the medal. So whenever we talk about AI, of course, we have to think about whatever data is feeding it, and we cannot separate the two. So this is what we'll discuss today. Data spaces. Everybody's talking about it, but probably nobody knows what this is all about, what they are all about, how to build one. I don't know either, and you'll see why. This is a very complex, indeed, endeavor. But I'm hoping through the presentation to give you a little bit of the leads that you can follow in order to, indeed, tackle this problem. So this is the agenda of my talk. I will be introducing the rising amount of data, the issues that we face from an interoperability perspective, having to ingest open data as well as data that is public by nature or also private. And then need for standards, approaches, and I'm going to conclude a little bit with a progress report of where we stand with the implementation of the Common European Agricultural Data Space, which is this SEEDS project that I'm part of, which is into its first year of execution these days. So, current use of data systems in agriculture. You see it there. There is already quite some complexity, because we are talking about tools that are needed for public monitoring, evaluating and controlling the operation of farms. We are talking about the farm management administration systems. So we think about all the software that the farmers use in order to manage their own farm. And then we are talking about operational fields that are coming from operational data that are coming directly from the fields. So this is a quite complex situation that we're dealing with, where we have highly fragmented data sets. There is little to no interoperability between all these systems. And, all the data that have been collected until now, most often than not, they are fully inside those silos. By looking at this, if we want, I'm not meant for you to read this, but that gives you an impression of the sheer complexity of the problem that we're dealing. This was part of one of the deliverables that we produced when we were looking at the problem in order to understand how then to structure the next proposal and to structure the agricultural data space. So you see public and private data, you see statistical data, operational data, you see raw data, you see process data, and all these have, again, ownership, time of lifetime, and just duration, size, that are increasingly diverse. So how do we make, this is also just to give a further example that is coming from a concrete problem that we are facing at the Italian level. This is one of the three systems that I was introducing before for the Italian situation. So you see here the farmer at the bottom that is meant to produce data for regulatory purposes. And then you have statistical data that are processed at national level, because these are needed also for distributing the subsidies that are coming from the common agricultural policies. And then, of course, Italians being Italians, we are a collection of so many regions, and that is also reflected in the payment agencies. We don't have one, but we have something like 12 different payment agencies at regional level. So this is just to say that there's quite a lot of complexity to deal with, even if one looks at one country boundaries. And then you got European level, and things, of course, become much bigger and more complex. So what we are seeing here is silos across different stakeholders. We are seeing different infrastructures according to how data is published. You can have endpoints. You can have maintained APIs that you can interact with. You can have a georeferenced previews. Sometimes, more often than not, you don't have that. And then a lot of standards. You can tell the world what your data set is containing, and therefore you're using metadata and the standards that enable, as we will see, catalogs to be produced that, just to share that information for visibility purposes. And then you got data models that are indeed related to how that data is structured. And then once you get into the plumbing of how data gets flowing between a source and the destination, this is another additional thing that you need to consider in terms of standardization, in terms of being able to parse a data model in a way that makes the content in it meaningful. That's where we will focus a little bit on the creation of such called connectors at the European level. So without wanting to boil the ocean, as we said, it's a big ocean, we started thinking a little bit more focused on what our needs were within the Agri-Food TEF project. So we said that we are running a project that it's meant to test and validate artificial intelligence solutions. Wouldn't it be nice to start also producing a data space within this huge initiative for collecting data sets that are coming from real experimentation in the fields? So this is something that indeed makes a difference in the agri-food world compared to other sectors we were discussing before. If you are in manufacturing, then you start running an experiment. you go home that night, you go back in the morning, and you keep on running experiment on something that didn't change. So you are indoors, everything is not moving, nothing is alive, and therefore you can afford to run experiments over and over, whereas in agri-food, what we are looking at is continuously moving systems. So what we said was, given that we got the breadth and the wide availability of partners that are running often similar services in different locations, and by similar services, I mean testing similar solutions in Spain, as might happen in Sweden, or in Italy, or in Poland, in different conditions, like weather conditions, like environmental conditions. And this is producing a diversity of data set for similar problems that indeed is going to acquire a lot of value as we run more and more of those experiments, because it's creating the diversity that is needed to make sure that then all the models that we build on those data sets are as robust as possible and as applicable as possible in the sectors that they were thought for. So we started with Agri-Food TEF, and then we said, okay, part of the experience that we are gathering in that project became also useful within this other initiative, which is the Common European Agricultural Data Space. So what we've been doing in the data space of Agri-Food TEF was to really focus on discoverability of data and the monetization. So everybody's been talking about sharing data, but before you share data, you have to be clear about what is the value for the data owner before he can share it. And one of those values is usually the money part. So you can receive a compensation. Here I put monetization as a word. I don't like it so much because there's also the valorization of the data. You can exchange data not for money, but also for something that you get in return, some value that indeed enables you to leverage the things that you do when you are producing data. So one of the things that is characterizing European efforts at this point in time is the so-called data sovereignty. You want to make sure that farmers, as data owners, have the say as to what can and cannot be done with the data that is harvested in their fields. Okay, this is something that Europe is particularly focusing on and wants to create a difference compared to what is happening in other regions from US to China of the world. So how do you preserve data sovereignty? Of course, once you share your data, if I'm copying someone else's data, that's it. That someone else has lost sovereignty because I've got a copy of it. So you have to think about ways in which you can negotiate policies before, or ways in which you can deny access to that data, if not for the purposes that that data was shared or to be shared. So one of the data sovereignty technologies that we've been exploring within the Agri-Food TEF project is the compute to data. So what you are not doing is copying the data. What you're doing is creating a trusted execution environment where the data travels to, the algorithm that wants to train on that data set travels to, and then at that point the training happens, and then you get the algorithm trained on a data set that you know what was like, but you didn't have to copy, and you get your algorithm trained without necessarily having to access the data in this case. So compute to data is one of the features that our data space provides, and this is enabling, as I said, some computation to be done on data sets without necessarily having to share them in a way that they can be copied. This is what is underpinning as a framework the work within the Agri-Food TEF data space, but also within AgroSpy, which is a Spanish initiative that is building a data space for agriculture at the national Spanish level that you might have heard about. So just to give an example, here we have an example of validation service. There is a data set that has been produced as a, let's say, element of value, as a service that we provide within the Agri-Food testing world. The data set is a number of snapshots of the apple orchards that have been properly annotated with ground truth. So what you do is, as you can see there, there is the partner one that has got the data set, and partner two that wants to test an algorithm that is counting the number of apples on those images. And then you get a report that says, okay, here it is how your algorithm scored on that specific data set that was properly annotated with the ground truth. So this is an example, and again, this has been implemented in a compute-to-data environment, and well, it's something that can be executed in a way that well, you see a snapshot here of the publishing process. Is an intermediate step in the publishing process, but this is to show you that that data set is published with some number of euros, as in, well, you can monetize the data set, and in this case, given it's properly annotated with the ground truth, that is something that has been chosen as an option. And you can say, for accessing this data set, this is how much you have to pay. And there's the underlying infrastructure that is establishing smart contracts that then once the training gets executed, then release the money to whoever is owning it, to whoever is getting it. So, and you can specify here that this is the only way in which that data set can be used. Therefore, you're not you know, just sharing it, you are creating a computing environment in order to train algorithms with it. So, what does it take to build a bigger data space? So we started saying, okay, this is one way of dealing with data within our project, but as you could see, the world is much larger, much bigger. So part of the SEEDS, the Common European Agricultural Data Space project, was to try and break down the problem into chunks that were more palatable for what our competencies were. And here you see a number of blocks that are indeed highly relevant whenever we're talking about data sharing and data spaces. The first one is a trust identity framework. So we need to agree on a common framework that enables us to tell who we are and show that we are the actual owner of the data set. And this cannot be done without a proper governance infrastructure that enables you to identify yourself and to provide some credentials that qualify you as the righteous owner of that data set. Then within the need to give visibility to those data sets, and that's where the catalogs and metadata descriptions come in. And then you are looking at the next level of setting up the plumbing infrastructure that makes this data flow. There's an access management mentioned in building block number 3, which is highly specific to the agricultural world because, well, farmers want to make sure that they can give or not consent on whether or not their data is shared for the right purposes. And then we're looking at interoperability, data models, semantics, data exchange and monetization, as well as data privacy preservation techniques. So that's a little bit more information on what I just said, the various building blocks, what they do, and what you gain from it. As I said, one key differentiator is having to merge all the different ways in which people can authenticate before publishing data. And this is one of the biggest hurdles that we're finding that has to be somewhat solved. At the cataloging level, we are agreeing on following DCAT standards. This is a way of creating metadata that can be crawled by, let's say, DCAT compliant catalogs. And this is something that enable public sector data as well as satellite open data, high value data sets, private sector data to be shared much more widely than within the infrastructures that they are created for. We are looking at a standard which is called the GeoDCAT AP, application profile, which is very specific for the agricultural world. And moving on to the data let's say, exchange through connectors. We are looking at using the Eclipse data space component connectors, which are wrappers that will enable the data sets to be shared by producing additional benefits that fill up a little bit the role of what we've seen in terms of trusted entity framework, in terms of bridging the people together onto the same kind of infrastructure. This is a little bit what it looks like from a data owner perspective. I can decide to publish my data through the infrastructures that I use. The tractor provider will give me access to the data that he collects on my field. The IoT provider will do the same, and then this data can be either non-standardized from a metadata annotation perspective, or could be even raw. And then there are some services that are coming from the data space initiative that give me the benefits of wrapping those data sets in a way that makes them a little bit more publishable according to those standards that we have seen. On the upper level, then this is where we enter the data plane, and this is where indeed we are adding through the services of a data space additional elements that enable the sharing, the data sovereign sharing by using data connectors endpoints. I'm running out of time. This is a little bit more the details into what is at the heart of SEEDS, the Common Agricultural Data Space. We are working on the risk management use case, but there are 8 other ones that are indeed being provided to test a little bit what we keep on doing from the technology perspective. The focus is on data models, data exchange, and well, this is something that has been provided as a blueprint for what we have to follow in terms of guidelines by preceding projects. I don't have the time to go into the details of this, but I think the message here is that we are at the heart of this European AI ecosystem now. So we've seen a little bit of the TEF yesterday, testing and experimentation facilities, where we test and validate AI for real. We've seen a little bit of data spaces today. There is other initiatives like AI factories at European level that are completing a little bit this picture, as well as a multi-country project that is upcoming that will be providing an infrastructure that is as much as possible shared between all the countries that participate in order to minimize the administrative hurdles that farmers face. This is me. Thank you very much for your listening, and yes, I will move over then to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Raffaele. Thank you, Raffaele, for a wonderful presentation. You talked about important and critical issues. I don't know if we should have questions right now or wait for later. So let's go to the next speaker. Let me introduce you to Federico, Dr. Federico Bert, from Instituto Interamericano de Cooperación para la Agricultura from Argentina. He's coordinator of the Digital Agro at the Institute of Instituto Interamericano de Cooperación para la Agricultura. co-founder of Agro-Consulting and other agtechs used and currently adopted by thousands of producers and assessors in LATAM, in South America and Latin America. Former director of the research and development at CREA and a former researcher at CONICET FAUBA. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Well, hello everyone. First of all, thank you very much, Rosa, and all the organizers for having us here on behalf of ICA. We really appreciate the invitation to be part of this important event. Today, what I want to share with you is an overview of how digitalization is going in Latin America and the Caribbean, and the role that AI may play in the transformation, digital transformation of agri-food system in Latin America and the Caribbean. So, I'm sorry. For almost 15 years, more or less, I worked as a scientist in Argentina and in USA, but today I'm not going to speak as a scientist. I'm going to speak as an official of a multilateral governmental agency working with 34 countries in all over the Americas. And also as a farmer, because I'm a farmer growing soybean, wheat, barley, corn in Argentina. So, okay. First of all, let me share with you very quick a brief context about ICA and about our region, Latin America and the Caribbean. ICA is the Interamerican Institute for Cooperation in Agriculture. We are the agency specialized in agriculture of the Interamerican system of the OAS, Organization of American States. We work every day with 34 country members from Argentina to Canada, including the 14 countries from the Caribbean. About the region, Latin America and the Caribbean plays a very important role in the global food security and sustainability. And I'm showing there some key figures just to give you an idea of our region. So agriculture contributes with more than 6% of GDP in the Latin America and the Caribbean. We are more than 21 million farmers, 80% small farmers. The region represents around 18% of global agri-food exports. Our region holds about 28% of the world's potentially usable land for agriculture and expansion, and we hold 40% of the global total biodiversity. So that is our region, and I will be talking about this region. I think that all of us are sure that agri-food systems are undergoing a very deep transformation as a result of the incorporation of digital technologies. And this image shows an example from my country, from Argentina. What we have there is a gaucho monitoring in his horse the livestock, his cows. And basically what we are seeing that we are moving from the figure at the bottom to the figure at the top, in which the same task can be done by a drone, capturing images that are processed by AI. So this example is just an example and illustrates a much broader transformation. And I think that we can, we have some lessons from other industries. Over the past few years, many industries experience a profound digital transformation. This is another example. I think that you can realize that this is Uber. And we moved from the figure in the left to the figure on the right in 10 years, 12 years, something like that. The main difference between the figures is the introduction of the digital platform that generates a lot of data, and that data generates information and change the way in which the producer and the consumer, in this case of a service, interact each other. So when we analyze what happened in this transformation, we can identify at least 3 main important things. First of all, value change, in this case, urban transportation, were completely reinvented. New actors and new business model appeared. Second, services and products improve, and that is good news for the users, and efficiency and transparency increased. And last but not least, both winners and losers were created. No transformation is neutral. And I'm including this example of another industry because agriculture, from our point of view, is centered in a similar process, and these industries are the mirror in which agriculture can look. So, the example of cattle ranching in the Pampas is just an example, as I said before. We have a lot of examples, not only in Argentina, but in the world. Everything what you see in this slide is real, is not generated with AI, it's not science fiction. We already have all these technologies available. However, their adoption is still far from widespread, okay? And the key point is that the technological transformation or a technological transformation doesn't happen when technologies are invented, but it happens when they are adopted at scale. And we are just in the beginning of that process. Something about AI, because we are in a congress of AI. So what we see is that among all digital technologies that we have available, AI is becoming probably one of the most powerful drivers of the change, of the transformation, of the digital transformation. Based on what we see yesterday and today, and what we analyzed from IICA, we identified 3 main areas of impact or application of AI in agriculture. First of all, patterns detection and predictions. Second, computer vision, and I included there some examples of each of the groups. And third, decision support systems and automation. And what we see is, although AI has recently gained enormous visibility, especially due to generative AI, many agricultural solutions and many scientists have been working on have been integrating in other technologies from several years ago. What we are seeing right now is a rapid acceleration of these capabilities that were developing in the last 2 decades. So, let's talk a little bit about what is happening in Latin America and the Caribbean, because that is a reason why I'm here today. Like in other regions of the world, we already have a large number of tech solutions available right now. More than 2,000 digital, mainly digital, and some bio tech solutions. Most of these innovations are coming from agtech startups, right? And we have world-class entrepreneurial and teams and innovation ideas, okay? So we have a lot of very talented people developing new technologies. They are very prolific. We have a wide range of many different digital solutions available, very competitive entrepreneurs teams. Okay. And number 2, let me, I think that this is not working. Yes, sorry. It doesn't matter. What I want to say, I'm sure, okay. Wow. Okay, what I wanted to say, and some seconds about this, is that digitalization, or I mean the introduction of digital technologies, is not only changing the way in which we do agriculture, in which we practice agriculture, but it is also reshaping innovation ecosystems. And that is very important because we have new actors, for instance, startups, venture capital funds, incubators, accelerators have become very central actors, and this is very interesting, and this creates new opportunities, but also highlights the need for traditional institutions, mainly universities, national institutes of R&D, agricultural R&D, to adapt and integrate into these new innovation ecosystems. The digital innovation ecosystem in Latin America and the Caribbean is developing very quickly, but we have huge differences or heterogeneity among countries. We have some countries like Argentina, Brazil, Chile, and Colombia that have very mature innovation ecosystems, and some countries in which we have everything to do in the future. Let's talk a little bit about adoption in Latin America and the Caribbean, but I will say this again at the end, but I think that this happened more or less the same in the rest of the world. Despite of the large number of technologies that we have available and their potential benefits, actual adoption remains very low. So for that reason, we think from ICA that the digital transformation in agri-food systems are in the very beginning. And this figure is a conceptual illustration of what I'm saying right now. And I think that if 20 years ago we were in a completely analog agri-food systems, and if we think that in 20 years we will have completely digitalized agri-food systems, today we're still in the early phase of this process, but note from our point of view that we are reaching a moment in which adoption may begin to accelerate. That is what we are seeing, or let me say, feeling in this moment. Of course, this transformation is not uniform. Some relatively simple technologies are already widely used, even by small farmers, and on the other hand, some more sophisticated or advanced technologies still have very low levels of adoption, even by large farmers. And we have very, very large farmers in Latin America and the Caribbean, mainly in Argentina and in Brazil. One challenge is that there's limited data about the level of adoption of the digital technologies, and it is also very difficult to define what is to be digitalized, because that is a dynamic concept. But I like this study from McKinsey, because basically they surveyed more than 4,400 farmers across several regions. And if you look at that figure, for relatively simple technologies, those that you have at the top of the figure, such as yield monitoring, for instance, adoption levels vary very significantly across countries. But for instance, we have United States or Brazil that show very high levels of adoption. On the other hand, if you look at the more sophisticated technologies, adoptions remain very, very low across all regions. And when farmers were asked about the reasons for not adopting these technologies, two factors appeared consistently. First of all, unclear return on investment, and second, high implementation and maintenance costs. So just to, not to finish, but to start to finish, let's talk a little bit about why all these digital available technologies are not being adopted yet. So one important aspect is that the development, that barriers to develop digital technologies are very low, but barriers to scale and adopt those technologies are very high. So to get effective value from an available technology, farmers must go through what we call the technology adoption journey. And let's illustrate this with an example. And this example is based in a true story. He's Micaías. He's a young agronomist from Córdoba, Argentina, not Spain. He achieved higher soybean yields with digital expert advice. So, Micaías had to meet several conditions before to get actual or real value from using an available new digital technology. First of all, he needed to have a problem and willingness to explore a solution, a tech solution. After that, and think in the moment in which you download the Uber in your phones. The first step was, I need to go from here to there, and I would like to try what happened with the new technology like Uber. Second, a platform existed, and that's not less important, and he knew about it. There was some process that led him to know that there was a technology available. He needed to have access to a smartphone or some kind of digital device. He needed reliable internet connection, and last but not least, he had to have the digital skills to manage the device and the specialized platform, in this case, to the digital technical advisory. Sorry. Only after all these steps could he got value from an available digital technology. And in Latin America and the Caribbean, we have very high barrier for several of these stops of the journey, of the technological journey. We have a lot of limitations with rural connectivity. We have relatively low digital skills in the rural population. We have a lot of available technologies, but most of them are not known by the farmers. We can work in different processes of this journey in order to, improve the flow through the route. And to finish, I have 2 more minutes. I will finish on time. I would like to share very quickly some interesting results of a very recent study conducted by Embrapa. What they did is to run a global literature review of, articles about the adoption of digital technologies all over the world. And they identified key drivers for digital technology adoption. They organize those drivers in 3 main groups: technological drivers, social drivers, and political drivers. And after some use of statistical methods, they could prioritize the importance or the role of each of the almost 20 drivers that they identified in that review. And the 5 most important drivers were, first of all, rural connectivity. Second, information disclosure mechanisms about the new technologies. Strong innovation ecosystems. Engagement of rural youth, and I'm here in the political drivers, and supportive public policies. So it was very interesting for us, this study, because it helped us to prioritize in which points of the process we should focus our attention and our initiatives in order to promote the adoption of the digital technology. So, what I wanted to share with you today, it is just a summary, is that agriculture, as you know, is entering a new transformation driven by technologies, and AI is playing a very important role in this process. Second one, we already have many powerful digital solutions available, probably more than we need, but their actual adoption remains very limited. There are still important barriers that must be addressed, and the key point here is that if these barriers are not overcome, digitalization will not advance and may generate negative impacts. From ICA, we want to be aware that digitalization can have a lot of potential benefits, but it also may have negative impacts. We want to have a balanced view of the technological process. And we think, and we are working in order to realize this, that Latin America and the Caribbean has a unique opportunity to participate actively in this transformation. Not only, as I put there, not only as technology adopters, but also as technology developers and innovators. And just to finish, let me add that probably, and with this sentence summarize the main idea that I wanted to bring here, that probably what we are seeing in Latin America and the Caribbean is very similar to what we are seeing in terms of digital transformation in the rest of the world. This is just to show you a lot of activities that we are doing that we are running in ICA in order to promote the development of new digital technologies in the region and the adoption of those new digital technologies that we have in the regions. Thank you very much again.
Thank you. Thank you, Federico, for a very nice and overall presentation about the digital transformation in Latin America. When I was listening to you and before that to Raffaele, he was talking about scaling up and scaling at global levels, and it came to me one issue that I'd like to discuss later at the end, which is how robust the models are. Otherwise, scaling up is a real problem that happens in many different contexts, in data, spatial analysis, and the use of data embedded into models. So robustness is probably a key aspect. In your case, when I was listening to you, I think that one of the words that came to me was trust. How much the people who are going to adopt it can trust not only the technologies, but whatever is offered by others. In my own experience living in several countries, I've seen that the mentality of the people varies a lot. In some countries, needs to be local solution. In other ones, it's better received when the solution comes from abroad. There are several examples of that situation. So I'd like to discuss that maybe at the end about it, because I think that in the past, technology was a limitation. The main issue was to buy a particular sensor or to buy the specific computer or device. Probably that's not the bottleneck right now in terms of the decision about adopting or the adoption by the farmer, for example. It's all the things that you touched and are really critical. So thank you very much. So let's go now to the next speaker. So let me introduce you to José Luis Molina. He is agricultural engineer from Madrid, Polytechnic University, with expertise and experience in business and management, leadership and innovation in business schools, including some very good ones, like London Business School or San Telmo Business School, among others. For over 18 years, it's been working for Andersen Consulting and Capgemini, Cable Systems, Telvent, and other consulting and businesses, and always linked to technology. And since 2012, he's the CEO of Hispatec, which is a technological agri-food tech business with over 200 professionals and staff, which is a leader in Spain with software solutions, and present in Portugal, Mexico, Colombia, Peru, Chile, and Brazil, I'm sure among others, and expanding probably. So anyway, thank you very much for being here, and please go ahead.
Thank you, Pablo. So thank you to all of you. So I'm pretty happy to be here, and congratulations for this great event that you have organized. Basically, today what I'm going to do is I could talk a lot about digital transformation and what kind of challenges are we finding doing digital transformation for cooperatives or companies and farmers and agronomists. So we are a company that we are 200 people, only focused on transforming cooperatives, companies, and farmers and agronomists, more than 700 of them in the countries that Pablo mentioned, and doing the digital transformation farm to market, so the full digital transformation. And I can tell you there are plenty of challenges with that activity, but I would like to focus much more on my short speech in the trends and in the world where we are going to be living in the future, that probably is much more attractive than talking about the past, where we cannot do anything, and basically we can do things for the future. So I will try to envision the kind of challenges that we're going to be finding in the near future. I don't know if I have the presentation somewhere. Okay, good. So, so basically, what I would like to, I don't know if it's coming or I start basically without presentation. So wait. I can do it as well, but.
Wait a second.
Okay. No. Yeah, here it is. So yeah. You were right. Thank you. So basically, just sharing with you some of the challenges that we have in the agri-food sector. So these are only some of them. So this is a sector with many challenges. This is a complex sector, by the way, where, among others, we have a lot of people thinking in costs and margins. We have big restrictions with the resource utilization. We are talking about water, energy, fertilizers, all kind of inputs that we're using. We need to take care of environmental sustainability, so we cannot produce food at whatever price. So we need to take care of the world that is surrounding us, and the society is asking to us to be really careful with it. And then workforce. A workforce that for a while, I remember when we were talking about agri-food sector as a positive sector because it was creating jobs and so on. Sorry guys, we are in a new world where there are no people to fill those jobs. So we don't need to create more jobs. So this is good that we create jobs, but we have the opposite problem. So that there's not enough people to work in the agri-food sector. And this is a reality that we are living and is growing. This is not only a disease in developed countries, this is something that is happening as well in all the countries today. Probably in some much more underdeveloped countries, there's still some room for creation of jobs in the agri-food sector, but in many countries, even in Latin America, some years ago, used to be like a good thing to create jobs. Today, in Latin America, nobody is talking about creating jobs in the agri-food sector because there are no people to work. So these are real challenges among many others, as I was mentioning. Basically, I will talk here about energy. You will say, well, why this guy is talking to us about energy if we are talking about agri-food sector? When the new war that is starting right now in Middle East is coming, or where the Ukraine war started 4 years ago, then we realize that fertilizers depend a lot on natural gas. Then we realize that when oil is going up, corn is going up, and wheat is going up, and barley is going up, and sugar is going up. You know, some data points that probably not everybody is aware of that. Brazil is the first country producing sugarcane in the world. You know that 50% of the production of sugarcane is going to bioethanol. That means that if oil goes up, the sugar goes up. Simple. Or in the States, that is the biggest country producing corn in the world, basically the 35% to 40% of the total corn production in the States is going to produce biofuels. So meaning that there's a big correlation between the price of one and the other. And then apart from that, as an input, the energy is very important for agriculture. So basically I always say that agriculture or agri-food systems are like an energy balance, big energy balance, where we are putting fertilizers, we are putting energy in tractors, in harvesters, in whatever, we are putting energy to move water because the water needs energy to be moved. And we are obtaining energy in the shape of food, in calories or whatever that we eat. So it's very important to take a look to the revolution that is happening in the energy space with solar panels, with renewable energies, with storage, with biofuels, with many other things that are impacting strongly in the agriculture sector. Water. So the water is changing dramatically. So in the last year, so when the first desalination plant was created in Spain in the year 1964 in Lanzarote Island, the cost per cubic meter was 50 kilowatt hour per each cubic meter. We are today in the level of 2.8 or something like that in kilowatt hour per cubic meter. That means that the economics of desalination are dramatically changing. But if we take a look to the wastewater from urban areas, so the economics are in parallel changing dramatically. That means that such an important input for agriculture as water is changing a lot in terms of economics, and an static analysis today saying that we discard the utilization of water X or Y could be in 5 years' time is not valid because the economics have changed. So let's take a look to all the inputs that are impacting to the sector. The climate. So we have learned in those big books the climate in the world, but sorry, it doesn't work. So we need to take a look to the climate every single day, because every single day this is changing. And we need to use the knowledge, taking data points every single day. And we need to learn, could be 20 years ago, that the northern or the total potential avocado surface in Spain was reduced to 30,000 hectares in Malaga. And could be today, we are talking about 200,000 hectares in Malaga, in Huelva, in Valencia, in many other places. So basically the agriculture barriers or borders are changing dramatically, not only for the climate, so because genetics are changing in parallel. So every single day we are producing new varieties or new, or growing new species, and basically we are changing the geography of agriculture. So just another data point. So in Peru, the first blackberry was grown in the year, blueberry, sorry, was grown in the year 2012. In the year 2021, 9 years later, Peru became the biggest exporter of blueberries in the world. So just 9 years, due to a genetic revolution. So it was invented, the blueberry that was not needing cold in the winter, so the agriculture geography changed. So we need to manage agriculture with data, with knowledge that is renewed every single day. So we need digital agriculture and smart agriculture. In parallel, we are finding the AI revolution, and we are really in a, I don't know if saying in a revolution or in an evolution. Call it as you want. So I don't care the name. But if we take a look back to the new technologies that have been launched in the last 20 or 30 years, there are some of them that we should skip them. So just don't you spend a single minute on it. And some others where you should put focus. This is one of those that you should you should put all your potential focus, because this is really transformational. And this is, I think the name is pretty unfortunate, because it's artificial intelligence. Everybody is thinking in intelligence. This is very stupid. Artificial intelligence is very stupid. But help us a lot in automation, a lot in repeating things, a lot of avoiding boring tasks, and it can help us a lot, especially in one thing that I didn't hear mention, that concept, that is in user interface, especially the LLMs, so are allowing us to interface with the solutions, with the digital solutions, in a much more friendly way. And this is really revolutionary. So this is really very obvious, but very revolutionary. So let's take a look to this, that apart from doing computer vision, apart from doing very complex algorithms and so on, so just for that user friendliness, we can have huge results in the coming years. And please put a focus on this, because there's quite a lot of juice to get from this revolution. Then in parallel, I want to show here something that I don't know if all of us were aware of it, that is the agri-food sector is suffering from its own success. Here I put a graphic where I'm showing the pocket share of food of the United States consumers. But this graphic is very similar in Europe, or is very similar in many other countries in the world. That means that we are spending less and less out of our money in food. And not only that, but we are changing the place where we are spending that money. So in the past, in the real far past, we were spending that money in our house, and a big amount of money. Right now, we are spending much less money in terms of percentage, and half in our house and half in the street, wherever, in a restaurant or in another different consumption situations. And if we keep with that mentality of Taylorism, of producing more and cheaper and so on, we can, by the way, we can succeed, we can be extremely successful by reducing these percentages to the 3 or 4% of the total wallet share. I think that shouldn't be a big achievement. So we, as people, experts in the agri-food sector, we should be focused on trying to maintain this percentage of expenditure and giving more for the same amount of money. So basically, that's something that is already happening in certain segments and categories, like take a look to beers. So 20 years ago, so we used to buy beer, and basically there were 5 brands of beer, 1 liter, $1 or €1, and that was all. Right now, we have 20,000 brands of beer, and we pay €3 per one small bottle of beer. And we are happy with that. We are just buying a different concept. That's happening as well in the olive oil. That's happening as well in many fruits. That's happening in many segments of the ones that are perceiving that there's an opportunity to give more for the same. So, and here we need to understand this trend. And the other thing is trying to be empathic and trying to generate a link, a digital link with consumers. We have a nice opportunity, a very nice opportunity, a unique opportunity to generate a link, a digital link with consumers, giving them much more information, much more transparency, sharing with them what we are doing to provide the best food in the best moment, in the best consumption events. So we are in a very unique moment when, for many years, the farmers was like the place where the area that was controlled by John Deere or by Bayer. That was traditional. But right now, we are in a moment when Amazon and Lidl are competing for the ownership of the supply chains and to control, to have more impact on the farmers. You know who is going to win in this fight? Yes, I give you the freedom to give your opinion, but I have a very clear answer on who is going to win there. So, you know, and basically we see right now Bayer or John Deere that are trying to go to talk to the retailers and to understand which is the most important things for their consumers in such a way that they can do things that are friendly for consumers. So it's very clear. And the value chains are integrating into that direction. It's very clear. And this is a big change. This is a huge change that is happening now. So two kind of very different agents are competing for the same supply chain. We need to do digital integral transformation farm to market. So we need to stop talking about providing island solutions. So that's a mistake. So this is like trying to convince the people to spend the money, so to be some days measuring what they are spending and some other days not measuring. So sorry, but either you work in one way for everything, either you work in the other. So analogic or digital, but you cannot be changing digital to analogic, analogic to digital. So we need to integrate all the supply chains in such a way that we control production, transformation, commercialization, and all of it in a digital mode. And then is when we really get the profit of digitalization, of digital transformation. Interoperability, this is what we have today. So basically, you know, I don't know if you find something that seems to be familiar to you, but what I see there in the outside, where there's clay, dust, and you know, quite a lot of normal people doing normal things, is this, that is a big mess of interoperability, a big mess of data governance, and we need to simplify this. This is a real challenge today. We cannot be here, each one of us, landing with a solution and telling everybody that has to adapt to your solution. No, sorry guys. So we need to exchange data in a friendly way and in a unique way. We need to talk about environmental impact, and this is something that the consumers are demanding to us. And environmental impact is not only a storyline, it's data. This has to be measured in an objective way, so it has to be put into numbers, into indicators, into so then, yes, okay, do the storyline, do the speech, but based on data. And basically, we are, as a summary, we are transitioning from 20th century agriculture to 21st century agri-food sector. That basically is going from analogic to digital. We are transitioning from mechanization to robotization, automatization. We are changing from quantity, so the 20th century was the century of quantity, to quality and demand-driven production. So we cannot be producing whatever we want. We need to produce whatever the market is demanding. We need to focus on economic, social, and environmental sustainability, not only on economy. We have to be efficient using resources. We have to be changing from chemistry, that was 20th century was the century of chemistry, to data, biology, physics, in terms of tools, and we need to go to that full integration farm to market. AI, big opportunity in all kind of areas. I'm not going to insist more, so there are many good presentations talking about it, but we need to put quite a lot of focus, and we need to work especially on the quality of data, on having data, because first is having digital data, and once you have them, integrate them with the right data governance, and it's then when we can get the price of AI that is like the cherry on the cake. So AI is extremely attractive, but unless we do previously the digital transformation work, we won't have the price. So we need to work on that basis, and then we go to AI. And this is the raw material of the next revolution, that is, we need people thinking in digital, we need data addicts, we need, I don't know if you are realizing of the change that is happening, but we don't need people doing the same thing 1,000 times. Well, still today, there's quite a lot of people that is being hired to do the same thing 1,000 times. That shouldn't be, that's not gonna be in the future. You need someone that is capable to teach the AI, is capable to control the AI, and is capable to manage the exceptions. What is a very different way to work than the one that we've had up to today. We need exception handlers. We need people ready for establishing collaborations. We need people capable to do process definition, because there's quite a lot of people thinking that AI is going to come here and is going to fix our issues. It's going to be defining our problems. So we are the ones that we need to define our problem and then go to the AI and ask him for an answer. But it's a very different way to work. We need to be learners, and we need to completely change our minds on the kind of professional that we need for the future. So let's be aware of these changes, because this is extremely impactful on the future of agri-food. And that's it. So I think quite a lot of food for thinking. I don't have the answers. I'm just happy putting you the questions to make you think and to exchange ideas and to define the future. That is in our hands. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, José Luis. So in the same way that I already discussed and identified a bit some critical keywords that are probably interesting to discuss a bit, like robustness of the models if we want to scale up, trust in order to adopt, depending on geographically which places and which mentalities of the people who are going to adopt it. When I was listening to your presentation, and this is a question coming from a scientist to someone who is actually working on practical aspects which are useful for either other service providers or for end users and adopters, is about usefulness of the technologies and the products that we are trying to develop. No need to answer right now, let's answer and discuss later, but I'm wondering if, from the scientific point of view, because I'm talking now as a scientist, if from the scientific point of view we are trying to go too much and too far and beyond some of the simpler tasks that the technologies currently available could offer in an easy and direct and straightforward way, while we are looking at things that maybe will come later, many, many years from now, and probably they will be here, but we are forgetting in some cases, because you commented about iteration, about replication, about duplicity, about redoing things in which the AI currently can be a good solution. Anyway, let's talk a bit about that, because I think it's critical as well. So let's welcome our last panelist, Professor Lawrence Clerks from Wageningen University. He's Professor of Agri-Food, Innovation and Transition at the University of Talca in Chile and Wageningen University in the Netherlands. He's expert in dynamics of innovation in the agri-food sector, taking a systemic perspective. Recent projects are related to mission-oriented innovation policies for agri-food systems and agri-food tech startup ecosystems and twin transition in agri-food systems. And working since 2015 on digital agriculture and looking at different aspects, social aspects, including like adoption of innovation processes, user-centered design, ethical aspects as well, and innovation of ecosystems. Thank you very much, and please go ahead.
Okay, let's do this quickly because I heard Aitana, and I think she's getting rogue, so she might kill us all if we're not out of here in 2 hours. So let's do this quickly. That is, if my presentation comes up, because obviously I'm totally technology dependent. I cannot present anymore without having something in front of me. Look at that, there it is, very good. Okay, so a little bit connected to the session of yesterday, session 3, and this session. It's both about ecosystems in different ways. I'll talk about innovation ecosystems for responsible digitalization. I think it nicely brings together, perhaps with a little bit more conceptual view, what we've been discussing in this panel. So the recap from yesterday, I already told you this would be like a play in 2 parts, very Shakespearean. I hope that the AI can pick that up. Let's see what the AI makes of that. Oh, very good, muy Shakespeareano, estoy impresionado. So basically for digital transformation, there's different sorts of readiness needed beyond technology readiness, societal readiness, legislative readiness, infrastructural readiness. To make that happen, you need to look beyond the technology development, you need to intervene in the broader system. So it's about multiple barriers which lie beyond the farm gate. So basically you need to work on bundled innovations, combined technological, social, institutional innovations. And that, basically requires the work with many stakeholders. And that shouldn't come as a surprise, and everybody talks about it, but it's far more difficult to organize for it, because we do tend to work in silos. And it's not easy to get out of our little worlds, very comfortable. But we need to do that, and for that we have concepts such as innovation ecosystem, and digital agriculture also has its developing innovation ecosystem. It's also a very nice perspective to sometimes understand, why are we missing some partners? Where should they come from? Basically, this kind of summarize what we've already been talking about. This bundled innovation package, it requires many players across multiple levels, at the farm level, in the supply chain, with the consumers, policy levels. You need to work locally, you need to work regionally, you need to work nationally, you need to work supranationally. Not all the time simultaneously, but you need to make sure that levels are connected. A barrier, for example, about data privacy, which is being noted in different regions, you might need to solve it at a national level or even at a European level. So you need to bring together all these different players, farmers, public and private R&D. I think particularly private R&D has become much more important. Investments in public R&D have gone down, private R&D have gone up, and I think in this world there's also a lot of money going into private R&D. But some of these issues are not completely private, so the public R&D still remains very important. And you, for example, see that role of public R&D in the verification of different solutions, in the grounding of solutions. The INEAs in Latin America are doing this sort of work. You need a lot of advisors to also help farmers make sense of digital innovations, increase digital literacy, but also help startups understanding farming reality, bridge between science and practice. Other public agencies, lots of sorts of funders, pre-competitive capital, venture capital, private equity, you name it, you need that sort of money for it. Startups, NGOs, you need some people also being critical on it, that say, you know, this is not all good, this has some negative effects, you need to bring them into the dialogue. Because if you don't do that at an early stage, it will hit you in the face at a later stage. If you look at, you know, how the whole debate around biotechnologies in the 90s and the rejections and the bans and the moratoria, well, that was also because that dialogue was perhaps not organized really well. And yeah, you need to take into account different upstream and downstream industries, like the Lidl's, supermarkets. Supermarkets basically determine what happens, and farmers are maybe followers. And also, though you don't hear that much about it, these acquisitions of big companies like Amazon in the food world, well, they also might change where the power lies. So it's important to create that multi-level interaction. But these roles, of course, and these interactions, they are dynamic, and it's not like just bringing everybody together in workshops and sit nicely. This is a dynamic process. You need to bring people in when they're relevant. So they change over time, and they change also according to the issue. Like a connectivity issue, yeah, who do you need to bring in for that? Well, you need to bring in people who plan infrastructure in rural areas. You need to bring in phone companies. You perhaps need to also bring in some equipment makers. If there's particular requirements for rural areas, you could say, yeah, well, we can just use the urban infrastructure. Well, maybe this just doesn't work there. You need to create some other infrastructure which can work in rural areas with different, perhaps, atmospheric conditions, dust, dirt, whatever. Have interoperability issues. Well, that also requires from bringing together those actors that matter for that, to create an industry standard. Industry standards take a long time, and typically they also have like a bit of a struggle. Who becomes dominant? Or also, when does the public sector intervene to basically say, cut the crap, we're going to do this, which happened, for example, with the mobile phone, where we have the USB-C, I think, nowadays. And that's also because of public intervention, basically saying, you know, we don't want to have these standard boards anymore, and to have also one party maybe getting more advantage. Quality issues, you need to solve that. Independent validation of commercial technologies. I think most farmers nowadays get totally crazy because they're constantly approached by different people selling kind of the silver bullet, the magical pill. Están vendiendo la pomada, como dicen in Chile. I don't know what they say here, but in Chile they sell the ointment. La crema mágica. Ya no hay que rascarse. Resuelve todo. Standardization, I already talked about it. Legislative adaptation. Often technology goes before legislation. I think you see that typically in this sector. And go out and break stuff. Oh yeah, no, let's create social media, and once we have about 3,000 suicides of desperate teenagers, then we'll regulate it. Yeah, it's a bit like a dramatic example, but that's what happens, and that probably also happens in this sector. It also requires some more proactive thinking of people, anticipating what might be the effects. And basically, as you can see in this scheme, which is on the slide, yeah, you need to sometimes work at the farm scale for this, some at the near farm scale, and some really at the global scale, for example, with standardization. So this requires building a digital agriculture innovation ecosystem that doesn't start, it doesn't appear magically like, oh yes, we have AI. There is the ecosystem. It emerges over time because people also run into barriers, and then recently they start engaging others typically. So this is not a linear process. And yeah, it also very much depends on what sort of issue is at hand, who needs to become involved, whether they're public sector people, whether they're private sector people. Welcome, Minister. I guess you are the Minister. I don't know. I'm not so familiar with the Spanish political landscape. I'm very sorry. Bueno, so for example, what you see that in some of these European projects, and Raffaele also referred to that, you see that over time subsequent projects start building this innovation ecosystem. Yes? So, having talked about innovation ecosystems, and they are very important to bring about this bundled innovation, the last section of my presentation is about, okay, basically innovation for what? And that is also about what sort of perhaps future systems do we want to build, and how do we want to go about this twin transition. And surprisingly, this is a word I haven't heard that much yet during this conference. It might have been coined. So the idea of the twin transition is that digital transformation supports agri-food system transformation. Well, you also refer to that because of the different challenges that are ahead, but also the different opportunities. And basically it's about finding the sweet spot between digitalization and the sustainability transition, going towards more ecologically sustainable systems, less food waste, different sorts of proteins, while basically staying within planetary boundaries, for those that are familiar with that framework. Well, so far, you know, might be not on the best route towards like this twin transition, because we are building digitalization mainly for optimizing business as usual, but not radically rethinking it. We are also creating with digitalization a lot of undesirable consequences, such as rare material mining, which is not sustainable, uses child labor, energy cost of AI. Ironically, particularly in small countries like my home country, the Netherlands, taking out fertile lands to put huge data centers. This is something we need to address. And basically, this is about thinking much more proactively about positive, neutral, and negative impacts of digitalization. And here, perhaps, what is really fruitful is a connection between technology developers and social scientists, but also artists, because artists tend to have imagination. And I don't think AI yet can take that over, perhaps. Well, but AI might also play a nice role in this process, for example, for making it more tangible. And so what you see in the literature that, yeah, there are people that sketch very utopian pictures, but also very dystopian, like evil killer robots roaming the countrysides. And yeah, this is, I think, a debate where we also should open up our positions a bit more, because they tend to be very entrenched position. You're for digital agriculture or against. It's digital ag versus agroecology. If they cannot meet, some people pretend they can never integrate, that they're too opposite. I'm not really in favor of such thinking. So basically, there have been very interesting studies. I'm not going to explain this whole scheme. This is done by David Rose. It's a publication in Nature Food. And so basically what they unravel is what are the different positive and negative aspects of automation in agriculture, with autonomous robots, and looking at all kinds of realms like regulations, employment, the economics of it, also issues of trust, health and safety. That's, for example, also an issue with autonomous robots. What if the autonomous tractor hits a farm worker? Who's responsible? Is it John Deere or Small Farm Robotics? Is it the farmer? Is it the telecom provider which has distorted the signal, which made the robot go off his path? Yeah, these are all kinds of issues, and that's then typically something which needs to be discussed at a sector or national level. And so these sorts of analyses are quite useful also for knowing what innovations issues to address. So what is really helpful here is to think about digital agriculture and digital transformation, or the twin transition, as a social cyber physical system, or even a social cyber physical ecological system. There's all kinds of interlinkages between interventions of digital technologies, which interact with physical infrastructures, which interact with ecology, which interact with the social. And you need to do sort of an equation or a model to see, okay, what is this going to provoke? How is this going to change the world? How is this going to change the countryside? So Spain, I think, for many years has been worried about the depopulation of its rural areas. Well, digitalize the rural areas. What will we have? Fully empty rural areas because it's robots roaming and some people in overcrowded, overpriced apartments in the countryside managing it. Is that what we want? So you need to think about it. And for those that are interested in it, I would suggest you to read the book Dark Machines, very nice title, by Victor Galas from the Stockholm Resilience Center, where they reflect on these sorts of issues. So basically, the question is digital agriculture for what sort of transformation pathways? And I already said, there's people in favor of it, people against it. I put some nice reports from people mostly against it. Digital control, Trojan horses on the farm, head in the cloud, they're against it. But some people, like the people from Reform, already having a little bit more moderate position. How can we find the best of both worlds? So basically, and this is something which is already being done in a lot of EU projects, we need what is being called responsible innovation or even responsible scaling, because responsible innovation is more at the front end of innovation. But yeah, you need to continuously monitor it because some of the effects only become really apparent in practice. So this is a deliberate reflection on the potential undesirable effects, the trade-offs already during design and initial employment or deployment, I should say. So it's about having an exercise of anticipation with those that are most likely affected by it, and being continuously reflective. How is this developing? Should we also kind of steer it in another way? And you do see this happening, but it's not always organized for in a deliberate way. And I think much can be gained by that. And it's also about accommodating the diversity of transformative pathways. So you can say, okay, do we go for digital agriculture for monoculture, large-scale farmer, basically extending a lot of how we produce nowadays, or do we go for digital agroecology, where you design for a different sort of system with very high in-field diversity? Obviously, that also needs to be technologically possible, but you need to be aware, what is my design frame? What is my technology frame as a designer when you work on novel systems? And sometimes that awareness is not there because people, they go on autopilot, driven by certain values that are just basically installed during their training, and they sometimes rarely question them. So some final reflections. Digital agricultural technologies are still created by humans for humans, but as we know, the clock is ticking and Aitana will take over in 2 hours, so we need to be gone by then. It's important to acknowledge the complexity, diversity and non-linearity of the social cyber-physical system that design, create, diffuse and implement digital agriculture. I wrote that myself. It could be ChatGPT. But I think the biggest human challenge is deciding digital transformation for what, for whom, in what way. I think it's being seen as inevitable. It will happen. We can also say, the nuclear bomb, it was inevitable. It should happen. What do? Do we just let it go? Do we do a moratorium in 20 years because we say this thing has gone out of hand? So I think also that sort of thinking is quite important, not just for digital agriculture, but for the digital overall. And this requires different disciplines, also working with different users, not just the farmers, but also the retailers, the machinery producers, everybody basically who has a role in this innovation ecosystem. So thank you very much. I hope I haven't insulted too many people or said too many really wrong things. And thank you also for the invitation.
Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you very much, Lawrence, for the great presentation focused on innovation. And I have some questions that trying to get a bit of debate. It doesn't mean that what I'm going to ask is what I think, but it's probably the opposite. But anyway, let's talk about it. Before that, I was wondering if there's any question from the audience. I think that it would be great to receive questions because that's why we are all together here. So, yes, please.
Thank you all for nice presentations. I have only one question for Raffaele. So recently we have this new concept of big data. It's like a new enabling technology, one of the enabling technologies, characterized by 5 V's, like volume, variety, velocity, veracity, and then value. And more recently, two other V's, so visibility and what is the last one? So my question is, and then even more recently, another concept, it's small data. So because I do care about terms and terminology, so I would like to know if you have like an idea about the differences between big data and small data.
Yes. So, well, on the big data front, help is coming, and that's called the AI LLMs. So this is one, let's say, companion that will help us address many of the problems that have been basically untractable until now, such as interoperability when you have so many different standards, so many different ways of expressing a data set. On the small data front, this is making me think about the high-value data sets. This is something that has been proposed to make sure that there is some diligence in the way data is published. And many of the public sector initiatives are already going in that direction, creating data sets not just for the sake of just putting out data there, but making sure that this is properly structured, that it is properly advertised and described according to given requirements. So a lot of small data will be indeed needed to, if produced according to those values, in order to assess whether or not the big data training of AI is fit for purpose.
Thank you, Raffaele. So one question about trust. Sorry. Yeah, I'm going to interact between questions I have, debate, and then questions from the audience. So just 1 second. So that's a bit more active. Regarding trust, we've been talking before about how the adoption could be improved. What can we do to adopt the technologies, the new methods, models, algorithms, and so on? Trust is a critical aspect on the technology, particularly from the agricultural sector. And I think that mentality here plays a very important role. I mean, I'll give you an example based on my own experience. In Australia, for example, everything needs to be from inside, offered from companies which are embedded in the Australian system, and that they are seen by the adopters and the people who are going to use it as something that comes from inside. In Europe, I would say probably in Southern Europe, mostly, we receive in a very positive way anything that comes from the north or from the US or from other countries. It's a mentality aspect. It's probably the same technology, but it's exactly received in a very different way. Based on your own experience, what do you think about that? Because that is sometimes a bottleneck or a limitation.
Sure. Thank you very much. Very interesting. I will try to be very short. I would introduce like an alternative view, at least from Latin America and the Caribbean. I think that I'm not sure if it is a sake of trust, because we are one step behind. And what I say this, because first of all, the technologies that the farmers have available are not completely adapted to the needs and context of the farmers, they don't know and they are not willing of the available technologies. So they are one step behind. That is one thing. And what I see is that if they know a new technology and the provider of that technology can show them that they will get very concrete benefits, they are going to adopt that. They are very pragmatical. That is one thing. And I'm talking about small, medium, and large farmers. And the other thing, the other phenomenon, I would say in these terms, is that as most of the new technologies are provided by small groups of entrepreneurs, the farmers have more trust in those people than in the big traditional companies. So they don't worry about when a small startup come to offer them a new digital platform, they don't have concerns about what are they going to use with the data that they are putting in the platform, because they trust in the young people, small companies. They are not Bayer and I mean.
So, so José Luis, your company is in several countries and you have to face similar aspects. What's your...
Yeah, so I would say, so basically my vision is slightly different to the one that you were mentioning. So I would say that in all the countries, we're working in more than 30 countries. And basically there's a rule that is real in all of them. That is, the guys that they adopt technology, they want a return on investment, that's obvious. They are open in most of the cases, I would say, and those fears of data ownership and so on, to be honest, I don't see them. So it's very weak, yes, but very weak. But they need someone there to do the implementation, someone there for support, and the day when there's a problem, you have to be there. But there physically, I mean. So you cannot be in a telephone, that's perfect, but physically is a must.
Yes.
In whatever country. So, and we are in South Africa, we are in Poland, we are in different countries in Latin America, in different countries of the Mediterranean side of Europe, I tell you. So you have to be there. You want to work, you need to be there.
Yeah, great, thank you. Yeah. Another question from the audience, I think, yeah, but before that, you wanted to ask something, or?
She was before, the one in the end.
No, but that's...
Yeah.
Now we'll have her time as well.
Well, first of all, I wanted to thank you all, because it's been an experience. All of your presentations have been really motivational and inspirational for us, or at least for me. But I wanted to ask Federico one question, because you are the first person to mention youth, so the engagement of youth engagement, and also I was thinking in at least from my perspective that in Spain, and I believe in Europe and in all the worldwide, there is a real problem relating to the youth renewal at farm level. So, okay, we are talking about AI and all the AI-related aspects, but sometimes we need also that new people entering the system, and this is so training. You mentioned also training, and I wanted to more about that, and also what are your thoughts, and also to all the members, and all because also José Luis.
No, only one.
Only one.
Please, yes. Thank you. So the question was for Federico.
From me. I don't want to be too disruptive with the dynamic, but I think that Carlos, that is from ICA, also could answer better than me the question, I don't know, Carlos, I'm sorry, but ICA has been working a lot with engagement of youth in agriculture in general, but as vector of new technologies in particular, and we have recently published a policy brief about exactly this topic. So, Carlos, if you want to comment, I'm sorry for
it's okay.
giving the floor to him.
I'm pleased to see it. Yeah.
No, thank you for the question and for bringing up the theme that Federico said about youth. We just published a policy brief, and it is interesting. I will send you the link because it's not much information there. But there is some kind of narrative about youth that they has to be drivers, they must be like the users as well to bring technologies into the field. But it's not that easy because we say that, decision makers say that as well, but they run in a lot of troubles because they don't have the same access, at least in Latin America and the Caribbean, to, for example, training. They lack the same resources, even more because there are a gap for youth to become with property of the land, for example, which is basic for investing in technologies or having a credit. So like financial access. So there are many special gaps for youth that brings another level or layer of difficulty of accessing technologies. But on the other hand, decision makers and people are saying, you are the future, you must bring technologies into the field, but they don't have that. So it is quite difficult, it is interesting. Sorry to not give you a proper answer, but from ICA we are trying to give more training, try to reduce that gap and to focus on this kind of policies and also like changing the narrative. They must be integrational policies, integrational with all youth and all people as well, because, well, all farmers, because they need to integrate better. Not like we say, I don't know in English, but relevo generacional, and we say integración generacional.
Great, thank you. Lawrence, innovation and issues with how good it's when well implemented, and the pushbacks and the limitations of innovation that is trying to be pushed. Like, for example, what happened in other technologies already available in agriculture, including drone technology and others that have been a clear push forward in specific aspects of the innovative technologies and methods in agriculture. At the same time has been going backwards 20 years on aspects that we used to do with other type of platforms in 20, 30 years ago. What about the adoption of AI and digital technologies in agriculture? Can you identify specific limitations and pushbacks that could happen because of that innovation coming and trying to be pushed in a very hard way?
Gee, that's not the easiest question. Well, sometimes you see pushbacks because technologies promise more than they deliver, and then I think the adopting community pushes back itself, and they lose faith, and that sometimes is also a wake-up call that certain aspects need to change. And
that's what happened with remote sensing in the 80s with a solution looking for a problem.
Yeah, but that often happens. That
are you seeing that?
That things are being hyped, then they hit kind of the reality, and then they need to get a reality check, and then sometimes they come better in a real form that works. But sometimes also users start selecting the features that are useful for them. You remember maybe all the flashy equipment from the 80s stuff, and later you had much more minimalistic design because that was what actually mattered, so that might also happen.
Are we overselling?
Are we overselling? Well, here, maybe you need to ask this man. He probably has a lot of user reports from the stuff he sells. I don't sell any stuff.
I was going to ask him after you.
Yeah.
So,
But I think what's also important is that, that for example, drones, sometimes you also need to think about those that are going to lose and sort of the pushback they give, and sometimes maybe even disinformation, misinformation about benefits. So it's also important, I think, in these sorts of adoption processes that you think about what is being phased out and how can you perhaps engage those that are, you know, going to lose in becoming more enthusiastic because you make it into an opportunity for them. For example, how can you help these companies that provide mechanical services also become drone operators, and that might then also provide a huge push because they already have a big clientele, and then it could spread much faster, for example. So there's also, I think, ways to engage with pushback and accelerating and the scaling, basically.
so in the context of the overselling and the question I asked after your talk, which I introduced the fact that sometimes I feel that we are trying to solve something that will be there maybe in 10, 20 years from now, but easy solutions are sometimes missed or we forget about them. What's your view about it?
Let me go back to you with another question. How many of you are using Microsoft Office suite, and how many years have you been using it, Microsoft Office? Probably 10, 20, 30 years. How many of you now at least 20 or 25% of the options that are available there? How many of you after 20 years? So probably when I'm selling, or when you are selling, when you are selling, right, you are talking about the 100%. You are not overselling, so you are telling the truth. But you are trying to sell an airplane to someone that is not a pilot. And that guy is telling you, please come here, you take the plane, you do as a pilot, and then I go close to you, and after a while, then I will pick the airplane and I will drive the airplane, but not before. And that's exactly what is happening. And by the way, after that, I will tell you how many of the 2,000 buttons of the airplane are useful for me. That probably are only 5 or 10, but the airplane has 2,000 buttons. But you only need to use 5 or 10, and that's enough. So basically, that's exactly what is happening. So, you know, I'm overselling, you are overselling, everybody's overselling, but this is a matter of languages. So we need to be empathic with the guys that we are going to work with and trying to fix the highest impact problems that they have. And probably, and what we do usually with our users is that we do first wave of change, second wave of change after a while, then you go back 18 months later, and then you say, well, come on, I'm gonna sit down with you, and I'm gonna explain you, once you are familiar with the most painful and useful things, then I'm gonna then I'm gonna teach you in the next level of functionalities. And probably 2 years later, after those 18 initial months, you go back again. And this is an iteration process.
I think this is a really very interesting comment, and it relates a little bit to what we discussed yesterday about adoption and partial adoption. It is about how you measure success, and I think sometimes technology developers define success by, I want my super idealistic, perfect world realized. It will not happen. It might already be a success when indeed some features and that deliver real value are being adopted. So it's also about what is your kind of norm for successful adoption, and maybe we set that norm a little bit too high. Because what I saw, it looks all very, very fancy, you know, and I sometimes think, gee, how can you realistically make that work? But maybe you already need to be satisfied if you have part of it working.
Yeah, exactly.
And then indeed, over time, it might evolve to something more sophisticated.
Yeah.
We're running out of time, but Federico, very quickly.
Very quickly, I completely agree with what José Luis said, and I will add anything else. Someone else, sorry, is that most of the startups that are offering most of the solution are most of the time seeking for funds. And those funds are coming from venture capital. So they have to have a pitch, a very impressive pitch, and they use the same pitch for the VC, the venture capital, than for the farmer. And in that case, are at some point over selling the solution.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to the audience for the last question, and then, because we need to finish, and then I am going to ask you, each of you, to give one conclusion out of the couple of days that we've been here, each of them in the field of expertise and your own context. But I would be very sad if Na cannot ask the question she wanted. I want to cut you off. So you wanted to ask a question? So.
Thank you. Thanks for very nice keynote presentations. In a way, very excited to see the AI development and its use for digitalization of the agri-food system. But we know that since has pros and cons. Sorry, I don't want to be a party pooper. I really like the development of AI, but at the same time, I'm very curious about what do you think the major or the biggest negative effect on the development of agri-food system. Of course, I think I can also ask this question to ChatGPT, but I think ChatGPT give me cold answers. I prefer warm answers from experts.
So who wants to answer? Yeah, thank you very much.
I think I can start anticipating my conclusions then and take this opportunity to provide an answer. So out of these interactions, I mean, I was running a startup at some point in my career, and one of the things I remember is that on the 15th of July, when there was 40 degrees outside, I was called by the customer because there were sensors that were not working and plants that were withering. And at that point, I had to go with my colleagues, and we needed to find inside the greenhouse with 40 degrees outside our sensors, while the vegetation around it had gone to the roof. And that was something that indeed brought me back to having to think a lot before indeed providing a solution that oversells, how indeed you can support it and make it robust so that it doesn't come back as a big problem afterwards. And yeah, so pretty much sympathize with having to just be close to the customers, be close to whoever the farmers are that are using our solutions. And it kind of gives me hope that in this particular domain, which is the agri-food production, AI will not be there to replace the human beings working alongside with the farmers for quite a long time, simply because the farmers are used to human interactions, and as we have discussed before, they will need to be coached into adopting some of these technologies, a little bit like when you're going on an airplane and you're being shown how to fly it. So that's a message of hope. AI is there, won't be replacing the humans anytime soon, and there's a lot of work for these young guys to be doing in that context, so keep working at it.
Thank you very much, Raffaele. Federico?
I don't feel ready to give, but no, I'm glad to see that there are a lot of practical developments based on AI that are being developed. I see a lot of interesting ideas yesterday and today. I think that that is very promising, but we should work on how can we make the soft landing of those ideas and developments in the farmer's life. No more than that.
So humans will not be replaced. That's one of your messages. Which one is the message?
Not message. Sorry. Glad to see a lot of solutions and work hard on how to make usable those solutions.
And robust adoption of the
Yes.
of the products. Okay, good. Thank you very much.
Well, I think my final reflection also was partly triggered by the question that was asked by the lady. And I think that everything I've seen here shows a good understanding of all the complexity, because I've seen a lot of very sophisticated schemes, but also like a paradigm of like control. We need to know everything, we need to control everything, and I think that might be quite difficult with all these different unknown factors and these different kind of things which are out of our control in agricultural systems. I'm not sure whether with AI, because AI can also perhaps anticipate and react to that, we can create a system which both can then manage these complex systems but also be resilient and not too vulnerable. Because if one thing starts to fail, will it all collapse or will you get cascading effects which are undesirable? I think that is my concern that I take, after reflecting a bit and seeing everything. So that might be an issue also, where are the emergency buttons, what can we safely outsource and what should we keep under our control, or where should we remain to be quite adaptive also with our own experience of thousands of years of farming.
Do you think that the availability of technologies and the availability of sensors are making us to control everything too much?
Well, I think, I think the paradigm of control is a little bit kind of cooked into this. I think maybe the risk is that we start outsourcing too much and that we lose some critical capability of also being able to assess and react to these systems. So it's also about, to what extent do you leave things to machines, and to what extent do you still build sort of that experiential knowledge which comes from walking through the field, observing, smelling, etc. So how can you, successfully take over all the senses and capabilities that a farmer develops? Can that be done, or can you have like a Aitana farmer doing everything?
Okay, great, thank you. And finally, José Luis.
So basically, I would say, AI is a tool, and digital tools, sensors, or whatever kind of devices, applications are tools. Once we receive that kind of revolution in terms of capabilities, what it happens is that we commoditize many things that previously we were doing quite painfully, and right now we can do it by a fraction of the cost or by a fraction of the complexity. So, say one guy was waking up at 4 o'clock to open the water to irrigate the plot. So right now he can do it with a button, or he can do it just by programming some kind of application that automatically does that. Does it mean that we are going to be replacing the human being? No, we need to reinvent ourselves, and that's why I was putting emphasis on that space. We need to reinvent ourselves, and we need to reinvent the agri-food sector, because if we reach the point where we finally commoditize all the tasks in the agri-food sector, we can succeed, congratulations, and we represent 0.1 of the economy of the world. So that would be a real pity, because I think there are quite a lot of professions that can be created surrounding the agri-food sector that are extremely worthy, that are related with things that only human being can have, and probably will have for at least 50 or 100 years, that is empathy, creativity, hope, imagination. So those things are clearly human and cannot be replaced by artificial intelligence. So I would say we need to bet for sure for digitalization. That's a clear trend, and we are not making a mistake for it. And we are the ones that we need to orchestrate that transformation, that digital transformation, and being the ones leading that process. That's my key message there. Okay. So this is a clear bet. We are right, and let's be in charge of that digital transformation process. Okay, thank you very much, José Luis. Well, I hope that you enjoyed the session. Thank you very much to all of you for all the great ideas and presentations and the discussion. And I think that now we can move to the next session. So let me thank all the panelists right now. Thank you very much.